Obamacare to growing tensions around the world, from the Middle East, where Iran could shift the balance of power with nuclear weapons, to Asia, where China is growing more nationalistic by the day and bullying its neighbors. 2014 seems to be starting off with a level of global disorder we really haven't seen in years. Wall Street Journal deputy editorial page editor Daniel Henninger wrote in a recent column that he sees this as the result of weak global leadership, saying, quote, "The pedestrian reality is that politicians spend most of their time plotting to get power, then assume they'll figure out how to lead once they're in power. These are not pedestrian times. Barack Obama has proven that rookie leaders won't work in the world we've got now. If the U.S. wants to remain a big league nation, it's going to have to elect a big league president." The man who wrote those words, Daniel Henninger, joins me now. You're not a fan of leading from behind, apparently.
No, I don't think the United States can afford to lead from behind, John. In the entire post-war period, the United States has been the world's #1 power, and we have kept the peace, including through the Cold War with the Soviet Union, because the United States was willing to engage and lead. That does not mean necessarily that we always have to be engaged militarily in shooting wars, but we have to be the lead power. And Barack Obama, as a matter of principle, decided we would just be, in effect, one of the guys, and that we would use institutions like the United Nations to solve problems such as those in the Middle East. I don't think it works.
So what do you see as the results of that?
Well, I think what we see is the kind of disorder that is occurring in the world right now. Let's look at Iraq. The war ended, but the president pulled all U.S. troops out of Iraq rather than leaving a residual force there, as we have after every American engagement. Al-Qaeda has just announced that it has taken over half of the city of Fallujah and Ramadi in northern Iraq. Al-Qaeda is on the move there. The Syrian civil war is attracting Al-Qaeda fighters from all over the region. And you've got a situation in the Middle East now where refugees by the hundreds of thousands are spilling into Jordan. This could set off a tinderbox there, and the United States simply is not engaged. Instead, we're trying to solve the Palestinian-Israeli problem.
Well, the Palestinian-Israeli problem is one that's been going on for decades, really since the creation of the modern state of Israel. But is it worse now than it was, say, 10 years ago?
Well, I have always thought of the Israeli-Palestinian problem as kind of the Bermuda Triangle for U.S. Secretaries of State. Everyone has to wade into it, try to solve it, and most of the time they fail. And the situation is such now that there's no reason to expect a solution to that problem. And I think the Israelis understand they have to kind of go along with this, because if sometime in 2014 they decide they have to take action against the Iran's nuclear reactors, they're going to want the United States to support them. So they can't afford to alienate them over the Palestinian issue.
Compare the leadership style of Barack Obama with, say, Vladimir Putin, the leader of another superpower, or at least a former superpower.
Well, Vladimir Putin is a Russian strongman, and his foreign policy consists of intimidating his neighbors, whether the Ukraine, as right now, or the Baltic states, even Poland, to try to pull them back into his sphere. Premier Xi in China has essentially been spending the past year doing the same thing with Japan in the East China Sea, down in the South China Sea with Vietnam, extending their claim to territorial waters, while the United States has essentially pulled back from Asia. I mean, the White House had to send Vice President Biden and Secretary of State Kerry to Asia to ensure the Asians that we were still engaged there. I've never seen that happen in the
I thought we were
period.
pivoting to Asia.
Well, they thought the same thing, and then they started to ask, where are you? We are engaged in these tensions with the Chinese over these territorial issues, big power, and we don't want to get into a shooting war with them. Where is the United States? And the United States, as I say, had to explicitly reassure them that we would be present in Asia. That kind of problem is something that's got people talking about feeling as though it's the 1930s again. We have problems all over the world that could draw the United States into them.
Yeah, the world has always been a messy place. You're just saying that at this particular moment, there's a vacuum of American leadership, in your view.
There's a vacuum at a time when you've got problems in the Middle East, you've got problems in Asia, you've got lack of leadership in Europe, they're distracted with other issues. The United States, the president, is the only one who can engage with the world in a way that tries to keep the peace in the world.
Daniel Henninger is the deputy editorial page editor of the Wall Street Journal. Daniel, thank you.
Good to be with you, John.